The last survivor. The emergency lighting cast a blood-red glow across the bridge of the Stellaris, illuminating Captain Nyota Osai's gaunt features as she stared into the endless void beyond her view screen. 6 days since the attack. 6 days of silence, isolation, and the slow death of hope. The blackness of space was absolute. No stars shone through the cockpit window anymore, just endless void stretching in all directions. Nyota had drifted far from any charted route in the Zephyr Coalition territory, her damaged ship tumbling slowly through space like a wounded animal left to die. She coughed, tasting copper. The life support systems were failing, atmosphere thinning by the hour. Oxygen levels would drop below survivable thresholds in approximately 43 hours. Not that it mattered much, the emergency rations had run out yesterday. Status report, she croaked to the empty bridge, a habit from better days when her crew of 28 still filled these corridors with life and purpose. Now she was commander of a floating tomb. The ship's AI remained partially functional, responding with a broken, static-filled voice. Hull integrity at 12%. Power core containment stable but degrading, communications offline, navigation offline, life support critical. Estimated functional capacity 43 hours 17 minutes. Nyota closed her eyes, trying not to remember how they'd died. The attack had come without warning, no hail, no demands, just sudden, overwhelming force that tore through their defenses like they were nothing. She'd been in the maintenance shaft when it happened, checking a power fluctuation. The blast doors had sealed automatically, trapping her safely away from the immediate devastation. By the time she'd managed to override the emergency protocols and reach the bridge, everyone was gone. Not dead in combat, simply gone. Empty suits collapsed where her officers had stood moments before. No bodies, no blood, just emptiness and a lingering scent like ozone and decay. She opened her eyes and weakly dragged herself to the communications array one more time. The console sparked as she touched it, but she ignored the small burn on her fingertips. This is Captain Nyota Osai of the Zephyr Coalition vessel Stellaris, requesting emergency assistance. Anyone receiving this transmission, please respond. Static answered her as it had every hour for 6 days straight. The Zephyr High Command wouldn't waste resources retrieving a single officer so far outside their territory. Her people were practical to the point of coldness, resources were allocated logically, and a rescue mission here would be deemed inefficient. She knew the calculations. They weren't wrong. Nyota leaned back in her command chair and closed her burning eyes. The Stellaris had been her first command, a prestigious achievement for someone of her age. Now she would die here alone and forgotten, her promising career reduced to a footnote in some database. Mission failure, asset lost, incident report filed. A strange crackling broke through the persistent static of the dead communications system. Nyota jerked upright, eyes wide. Had she imagined it? No, there it was again, a voice struggling through layers of interference. Vessel in sector, respond, Alliance ship, distress signal. She lunged for the console, ignoring the pain shooting through her ribs, likely broken during the attack. This is Stellaris, I'm receiving you, please respond. More static then, unidentified vessel, this is Captain Joaquin Reyes of the Human Alliance ship Dauntless. We're picking up your distress beacon. What's your situation? Human Alliance. Nyota's heart sank even as hope surged through her. Humans, the newest species to achieve deep space travel, considered unpredictable and dangerous by Zephyr standards. Their coalition had minimal diplomatic relations with humans, considering them too volatile, too emotional for proper interstellar cooperation. Children playing with technology they barely understood, the educational modules had taught her. But children with a ship, children who might save her life. This is Captain Nyota Osai, she responded, swallowing her pride. Sole survivor aboard damaged Zephyr vessel, critical systems failing, life support will terminate in under 2 days. Her voice cracked. I need help. Silence stretched for what felt like an eternity before the response came, clearer now. Captain Osai, we've locked onto your coordinates. Hold position. We're coming to get you. Nyota stared at the console in disbelief. Just like that, no negotiation, no discussion of compensation or political implications, just coming to help. Thank you, she whispered, unsure if the transmission even went through. 4 hours later, the Stellaris proximity sensors, one of the few systems still partially operational, registered an approaching vessel. Nyota dragged herself to the view screen, manipulating the controls to bring the image into focus. The ship that materialized before her was unlike anything in the Zephyr fleet. Where her people built vessels of elegant precision, this human ship was blocky and utilitarian, its hull scarred and patched in dozens of places. It wasn't beautiful by any coalition standard, but there was something undeniably impressive about it, a ruggedness that spoke of survival and tenacity. The ship maneuvered alongside her disabled vessel with surprising precision. A docking mechanism extended from the human ship, connecting with her airlock with a metallic thud that reverberated through the dying Stellaris. Nyota pulled herself to her feet, swaying with weakness. She'd have to meet these humans face to face. Should she bring a weapon? Coalition protocol recommended caution when dealing with lesser-developed species. But what threat could she possibly pose in her current state, and what choice did she have? The airlock cycled open with a hiss, and warm, oxygen-rich air flooded in. After days of breathing the thin, increasingly toxic atmosphere of her failing ship, it felt like fire in her lungs. She staggered forward, blinking against the bright light streaming through the open doorway. Three figures stood there, unmistakably human, dressed in dark blue uniforms with silver insignia. The one in the center, a tall man with bronze skin and silver at his temples, stepped forward. "Captain Osai, I'm Captain Reyes, you're safe now." Nyota swayed, her vision tunneling. The last thing she remembered was strong arms catching her as she fell. She awoke to the steady beep of medical equipment and the murmur of unfamiliar voices. The air smelled clean, almost sweet, no hint of the acrid smoke and decay that had permeated the Stellaris in its final days. "She's awake," someone said, and a face leaned into her field of vision. A woman with copper-colored hair tied back tightly, lines of concern etched around her eyes. "How are you feeling, Captain? I'm Dr. Nakamura. You've been unconscious for almost 18 hours. Nyota tried to speak, found her throat raw, and gratefully accepted a small cup of water offered by the doctor. "Where am I?" she finally managed. "Medical Bay of the Dauntless," a male voice answered. Captain Reyes moved into view. "You were severely dehydrated, malnourished, and suffering from oxygen deprivation. 3 broken ribs, too. Dr. Nakamura has treated the worst of it." Nyota studied him suspiciously. "Why did you help me?" A flicker of confusion crossed his face. "You were in distress, that's reason enough." She frowned. This wasn't how humans were supposed to behave according to coalition intelligence. They were supposed to be self-interested, chaotic, prone to emotional decisions rather than logical ones. Well, this was an emotional decision, her mind argued. Logical species wouldn't waste resources rescuing a single alien life form with no strategic value. "My ship," she began. "Beyond salvage," Reyes said gently. "We've retrieved your logs and personal effects. I'm sorry, but there was nothing else we could do." Nyota nodded slowly. She'd known, of course, but hearing it confirmed still hurt. "My crew." Reyes exchanged a glance with the doctor. "We found no other life signs, just empty uniforms." A lump formed in her throat. She'd failed them all. "Rest now," Dr. Nakamura advised. "We're on course for Gamma Station. We'll arrive in about 10 days. After they left, Nyota lay awake, processing her new reality. She was alone among humans, creatures her people considered primitive and unpredictable, yet they had saved her without hesitation. Over the following days, she regained her strength and began cautiously exploring the Dauntless. It was nothing like a Zephyr vessel corridors curved seemingly without purpose. Crew quarters were personalized with photos and trinkets, and there was constant noise, conversation, laughter, even occasional music filtering through doorways. In the engine room, she met Chief Engineer Patel, a stocky woman with calloused hands and an infectious laugh who was fascinated by Zephyr technology. "Your propulsion systems are incredible," Patel enthused, showing Nyota around. "So elegant and efficient, we're still using modified fusion drives, reliable but hardly cutting edge." "Yet you found me when my own people couldn't," Nyota observed. Patel shrugged. "Sometimes being scrappy beats being sophisticated. We've learned to get creative with limited resources." She tapped a nearby panel that was clearly a non-standard addition. "This sensor array, built it myself after we nearly collided with an asteroid field last year. Not in any manual, but it works." That evening, Captain Reyes invited her to join the officers for dinner, an actual shared meal, not the functional nutrient consumption periods scheduled on Zephyr vessels. The humans talked over each other, laughed loudly, and even disagreed openly with their captain on some points, behavior that would earn severe reprimands in her fleet. Yet somehow it worked. There was genuine camaraderie here, a sense of community and shared purpose that transcended rigid hierarchy. I don't understand your people, Nyota admitted to Reyes as the gathering dispersed. Coalition intelligence suggests humans are individualistic to the point of dysfunction, yet your crew functions efficiently despite all this chaos. Reyes smiled. Maybe we're not so different after all. We both value survival, exploration, collaboration. We just express it differently. He studied her with curious eyes. And maybe your intelligence on us is as flawed as ours probably is about your people. That night, lying in her assigned quarters, surprisingly comfortable despite their utilitarian design, Nyota found herself questioning everything she thought she knew about humans. These weren't the reckless, primitive beings she'd been taught to expect. And somewhere out in the darkness, whatever had destroyed her ship and taken her crew still waited. The memory of that attack lingered like a shadow at the edge of her consciousness. Nyota didn't know why she had been spared, but as she drifted to sleep aboard this human vessel, she couldn't shake the feeling that her unexpected rescue was merely the beginning of something much larger and far more terrifying than either humans or the Zephyr Coalition could imagine: the lurking threat. The conference room of the Dauntless hummed with tension as Captain Reyes activated the holographic display. Nyota stood beside him, back straight despite the lingering pain in her ribs. The senior officers were gathered around the oval table. Dr. Nakamura, Chief Engineer Patel, Security Director Volkov, and Navigator Ortiz, all watching with varying degrees of concern as the sensor data from Nyota's recovered ship logs materialized in the air before them. What you're seeing, Nyota explained, gesturing to the chaotic energy patterns, are the final moments before the Stellaris was attacked. Notice this pulse pattern. It doesn't match any known weapon signature in Zephyr databases. Patel leaned forward, her brow furrowed. It's almost like it's organic, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Exactly, Nyota nodded. Whatever attacked us wasn't using conventional weapons. The energy signature suggests something fundamentally different, not a weapon firing, but rather a presence extending itself. In the weeks since her rescue, Nyota had slowly built a tentative trust with the human crew, particularly Patel, whose straightforward curiosity had broken through Nyota's initial reserve. Now, as they reviewed the attack that had claimed her crew, that trust was being put to the test. Reyes manipulated the display, overlaying a star chart. We've been tracking anomalies across 3 sectors for the past 4 months. Disappearances, distress calls that go silent, ships found drifting with no crew aboard. Red markers bloomed across the map, forming an unmistakable pattern. At first, we thought it was pirates or raiders. Now I'm not so sure. He turned to Nyota, his expression grave. What happened to your crew? You mentioned empty uniforms. Nyota's throat tightened. They were unmade, no bodies, no blood, just empty space where people should have been, as if something had unraveled them at a molecular level. The memory flashed vivid and terrible. Commander Joshi's uniform crumpled on the deck, still warm, the faint smell of ozone and something else, something ancient and wrong. Volkov, the security director, crossed his arms. So we're dealing with a weapon that dissolves organic matter instantly. Not a weapon, Nyota said softly. Something alive, something that learns. Silence fell over the room as the implications settled. Dr. Nakamura was the first to speak. The crew who survived initial contact, did they exhibit any unusual behavior before their disappearance? Nyota closed her eyes, remembering. Communications officer Khalid started drawing strange symbols on his console. Navigator Daishi kept repeating coordinates that didn't exist in our charts. They seemed influenced somehow. Reyes exchanged a glance with Nakamura. We need to establish containment protocols immediately, if whatever this is can affect minds. A sudden alarm cut him off. The lights flickered once, twice, then stabilized. Engineering to bridge, Patel's second-in-command's voice crackled over the comms. We're experiencing power fluctuations across all decks. Systems are responding sluggishly. Reyes' jaw tightened. Begin full diagnostic, lock down all non-essential systems. Could be damage from when we docked with the Stellaris, Patel suggested, but her expression betrayed doubt. Or, Nyota said quietly, it followed me. The thought had haunted her for days now, that somehow in rescuing her, the Dauntless had exposed itself to whatever had destroyed her ship. She'd kept the fear to herself, unwilling to seem ungrateful or paranoid to her rescuers. Now she couldn't stay silent. The attack on my ship wasn't random, she continued. We were lured there, a distress beacon on an ancient frequency. We followed it, thinking it was a derelict probe. What if I wasn't spared by accident? What if I was left alive as bait? The lights flickered again, and in that moment of darkness, Nyota could swear she felt something watching them. Not with eyes, but with an awareness more fundamental, more invasive. Volkov reached for his sidearm instinctively. We should quarantine. No, Reyes cut him off. If Captain Osai is right, this entity is already aboard. Isolating her won't help. He turned to Nyota, decision made. You know this thing better than any of us. I need you on this. His trust, offered so freely despite everything, struck Nyota deeply. No Zephyr captain would ever place such faith in an alien, especially one who might have brought danger aboard. I'll help however I can, she promised. 2 hours later, the situation had deteriorated rapidly. 3 crew members reported hearing voices in empty corridors. The ship's computer began displaying glyphs identical to those Nyota had described seeing drawn by her affected crew. Most disturbing of all, Navigation Officer Ortiz was found in a storage compartment, methodically arranging maintenance tools in elaborate spiral patterns while mumbling coordinates in a language none of them recognized. Dr. Nakamura had Ortiz sedated and confined to medical bay, but the incident left everyone on edge. Whatever had come aboard was influencing them, learning from them, just as it had on the Stellaris. Nyota found herself in engineering with Patel, reviewing sensor logs for any trace of how the entity had transferred from her ship. There, Nyota pointed to an anomalous energy spike. When your docking arm connected with my ship, that's when it crossed over. Patel squinted at the readings. Not through the physical connection, it came through the communications array, writing our own signals right into our systems. She shook her head in grudging admiration. Brilliant in a terrifying way. It learns, Nyota repeated. It adapts. On my ship, it took nearly a week to fully manifest. Here, it's moving much faster, probably because it's already studied one ship's systems and crew. Patel's console suddenly went dark, then reactivated with text scrolling across it, not in any human language but in Zephyr script. Observe, understand, become. Nyota recoiled. That's not possible, your systems couldn't generate Zephyr script. It's copying you, Patel whispered, your language, your knowledge. Before Nyota could respond, Captain Reyes' voice came over the shipwide comm. All hands, this is the captain. We have an intruder alert, non-biological entity. Avoid all non-essential computer interaction. Report to emergency stations. This is not a drill. Patel looked at Nyota, fear and determination warring in her expression. If it's in our systems, we can't outrun it, can't hide from it. Then we confront it, Nyota said. An idea was forming, dangerous, possibly suicidal, but the only option she could see. We need to speak with Captain Reyes, now. On the bridge, chaos had given way to grim efficiency. Reyes had ordered all major systems isolated, the ship running on manual overrides and backup circuits. It's buying us time, but not much, he told Nyota and Patel. This thing is learning our workarounds as fast as we implement them. Nyota laid out her plan. It wants to learn, to observe and understand. That's why it leaves survivors to study our responses, our fear. I think it's some kind of ancient intelligence, possibly predating both our civilizations. It doesn't want to destroy, it wants to experience. By unmaking my crew? Reyes asked sharply. By absorbing them, Nyota corrected. Their patterns, their knowledge, their essence, death is just a side effect of its curiosity. She took a deep breath. What if we gave it what it wants, but on our terms? The plan was audacious. They would create a contained virtual environment, a sandbox within the ship's computer, isolated from vital systems. Then they would feed it information, not about their weaknesses or fears, but about their strength, their cooperation, their shared humanity and Zephyr resilience. We teach it, Nyota explained, about what makes us more than just patterns to be absorbed. We show it that there's more value in communication than consumption. And if it doesn't want to learn that lesson, Volkov demanded. Then we have a backup plan, Patel interjected. While it's distracted with our virtual environment, we'll be preparing to purge it completely, a system-wide reset that will erase every trace of its presence. Reyes nodded slowly. Do it. For 18 grueling hours, they worked without rest. Patel and her engineering team constructed the virtual environment while Nyota and Dr. Nakamura selected the information they would feed it: cultural archives, scientific discoveries, art, music, examples of cooperation between different species and within their own communities. Meanwhile, Volkov and security prepared the purge protocol. a last resort that would essentially kill the ship's systems and restart from protected archives, hopefully eliminating the entity if communication failed. Exhausted but determined, they gathered on the bridge for the final phase. Nyota took her place at the main console, hands hovering over the controls. Ready, Reyes asked. She nodded, initiating contact. The view screen flickered to life, displaying a simple interface. Nyota began typing in both human and Zephyr language. We know you are here, we know what you want, we offer understanding. For long moments nothing happened, then slowly text appeared in response, a strange hybrid of both languages. Observe, consume, become. It's responding, Nyota breathed, uploading the first data package now. She sent information about both human and Zephyr first contact protocols, examples of peaceful interaction, scientific exchange. The response came faster this time. Inefficient, slow loss of self. It doesn't understand cooperation, Reyes murmured. It only knows consumption as a means of learning. Nyota adjusted her approach, sending data about symbiotic relationships in nature, mutual benefit, the evolutionary advantages of cooperation over predation. The entity's responses became more complex, more questioning. It was learning, or at least considering, new concepts. For hours, they continued this strange dialogue, watching as the entity's language evolved, becoming less imperious, more nuanced. Then, abruptly, it asked, "Why preserve separateness? Unity is completion." Nyota looked at Reyes, a moment of understanding passing between them. The entity wasn't malevolent, it was lonely. Ancient beyond comprehension, it had existed in isolation, learning by absorption because it knew no other way. We need to show it what it loses by consuming rather than connecting, Nyota said softly. She uploaded her personal memories, the camaraderie of her Zephyr crew, yes, but also the unexpected kindness of her human rescuers. The way Patel had welcomed her into engineering despite their differences. How Captain Reyes had trusted her despite having every reason for suspicion. For several minutes there was no response. The bridge crew held their breath. Well then, I understand, separate but connected, different but whole. The lights flickered across the ship, systems resetting themselves. On every screen the same message appeared, this time in perfect human and Zephyr script. I will learn another way, I will observe without consuming, I will remember those I took. Then, like mist dissipating in sunlight, its presence faded from the ship's systems. The final sensor readings showed an energy pattern departing, moving away from the Dauntless into deep space. Silence fell over the bridge, broken finally by Volkov's incredulous laugh. Did we just reason with a cosmic horror? No, Nyota said thoughtfully. We connected with a lonely intelligence that had never learned there was another way to understand besides consumption. She looked at the humans around her, people who had saved her, trusted her, fought alongside her despite centuries of mistrust between their peoples. Sometimes the greatest discovery isn't a new star or planet, but a new way of relating to what we don't understand. Captain Reyes smiled, exhaustion evident in the lines of his face. You've given us a lot to think about, Captain Osa. As have you, she acknowledged. My people have much to learn about humans, perhaps. She hesitated, then continued with newfound confidence. Perhaps I could serve as a liaison. When we reach Gamma Station, I could request reassignment. There should be more communication between our people. I'd welcome that, Reyes said, extending his hand in the human gesture of agreement. Nyota took it without hesitation, feeling the warmth of his palm against hers, so different physiologically, yet driven by the same core needs for connection and understanding. Outside the viewports, the stars shone bright and clear, no longer obscured by the presence that had hunted them. Whatever ancient intelligence had nearly destroyed them was now moving through space with new purpose, perhaps even new ethics. Like her, it had been adrift and alone, and like her, it had found unexpected salvation through connection with those it had been taught to fear. Nyota looked around at the bridge of this human ship that had become improbably a place of safety and belonging. Her Zephyr training had taught her that the universe was fundamentally hostile, that survival depended on strength and self-sufficiency. Now she wondered if her people had missed the most important lesson of all, that sometimes our greatest strength lies not in isolation, but in reaching across the darkness to those different from ourselves. The Dauntless continued its journey toward Gamma Station, carrying its mixed crew of humans and one Zephyr officer who had discovered, in the depths of space and despair, that sometimes rescue comes from the most unexpected sources. And sometimes so does understanding.